Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're playing Chessformer, where pieces have gravity. Let's dive in. Alright, level number 1, we are the blue pieces. Yep, we are the blue pieces. And we are going to make our way over. And you can see that if I move upwards, gravity kicks in, and I fall right back down. Apparently our king is a cave diver and sees a tiny hole, thinks that's a spot for him. But luckily we can get back out and capture the red king. Okay, so far so good. Pretty easy peasy. Okay, we introduce the rook. Regular chess moves on ranks and files, and does the same here, but falls again because of gravity. Nice, we knock out the king, and move on to level 3. Okay, we have a light squared bishop that needs to get on a dark square, so this is kind of a cool way to teach the mechanic. I'm assuming we move up here. Nice, now we are dark squared bishop. We can move up to this platform, sneak our way through, and now to become a light squared bishop again, we drop ourselves onto a light square, capture the king. Okay, cool. I like that little twisty idea. Now we have a rook and a king. The king is hidden away here. Okay, if we visualize, this is kind of, I'm not gonna say it's the same as chess because it's a little bit far off, but this specific concept is kind of similar. You want to visualize how you're actually gonna deliver what we're gonna call checkmate, or in this case, capturing the king. If you place the king down here, again, because gravity, we're gonna assume the lowest point, there's no way for him to get up there. So the next best shot is the rook, and the rook on this rank can land on this platform. Now the only issue is we need the rook to get up to this square, or at least one of these squares to fall down, and he's blocked off by this conveniently placed platform. So if we drop him down here, he's gonna get stuck. So I'm assuming we just drag the king over, drop a rook on his head, ouch, and then bring him over to capture the king. Okay, pretty straightforward. So I think that'll be helpful for us visualizing how we get to the king. Okay, this is like beautifully conveniently placed. Look at these L-shaped distance apart platforms. Isn't that perfect? We'll move up, climb over. Oh, cool. Knights can jump into cut off territory, which I'm sure will not be a problem later. Jump down, capture the king. Okay, cool. That cleared level 5. Okay, we're now on level 6. 2 bishops and a king. Okay, again, the king, there's no way for the king to get up there. That jump is too large for him to clear. So I'm assuming we need to bring one of the bishops this way. Now for that, it needs to be a light squared bishop, and there's nothing here. So we're gonna drop this bishop on the dark square, drop this bishop on his head, bring the bishop up, and now the king can climb through. Now we do need another bishop, so let's do that again. Another stepping stool. Thank you for letting me step on your head. Walk all the way over to capture the red king. Okay, easy peasy. That was level 6 on to level 7. Ooh, 2 knights. We have this function again. That's so perfectly placed that I'm just going to assume that I need to go through there. And now this knight by itself can make it over. Okay, again, this is all very conveniently placed. I'm sure it's because this is one of like the earlier levels, but we're going to drop this knight on his head and then place him on this platform. Now, this knight, I assume, continues around as it did over here to start on this platform. Nice, the knight can jump on his head and then clear the level. Cool. So that was level 7. We are now on level 8. Oh, sweet, we have little platforms. Okay, cool, so interesting. That's a way for us to move our pieces up. So the whole game isn't just falling downwards. We can also climb up if we have these platforms. Sweet, this is all very conveniently placed to knock out the king. All right, moving on to level 9. More platforms and pawns. Oh, and pawns can move 2 squares on their first turn. Or is it just back rank pawns? No, all pawns can move 2 squares on their first turns. Okay, cool. That's an interesting little functionality. Okay, we'll move this pawn forward. He will be a stepping stool for our king. What about this pawn? I assume this pawn is going to be a stepping stool on this square. So eventually the king will jump on his head, make his way to this platform. Our king can make it this far by himself, but needs another pawn to make his way over. Nice, now we do a little dive and take the king. All right, easy peasy. Level 10. Ooh, queen. Okay, so we don't have any platforms that the queen can just jump onto. They're all normal squares. If we work backwards, the queen is eventually going to need to end up on this square to capture the king, which means she'll need to come in through this diagonal. To come in through this diagonal, I'm going to assume she has to land on this square at some point, and normally that would be kind of the end of that reasoning because the queen could maybe come in through this diagonal, but oh, look at that, conveniently placed platform. So this seems like it will be a game of how high up can we get on a diagonal, right? Because obviously if I just move straight up on a file, she just falls back down, and moving along the same bottom rank isn't going to do anything for us. So we need a diagonal, like this diagonal was, a diagonal that leads to us sitting on a platform. We need another diagonal just like that that leads to an even higher platform so we can actually make progress upwards. Okay, and it seems the only way to do that is through this diagonal just above the other one, land on this platform, and now how do we make our way up here? Oh, okay, cool. So we jump over to this light square diagonal, take this little conveniently placed platform, and make our way down to knock out the king. Okay, sweet. Level 11. Okay, is this like... This is so bad. Is this a maze? Okay, there's only one option. Again, only one option. Okay, now there's 3 options. This seems to be a dead end. This has 2 options, one of which is a dead end, and then that's also a dead end. So we're going this way. Cool, it's kind of a maze, but at the same time, there's only a few select directions that you can actually move in realistically. Like for example, here, if I move this way, it's a dead end again. So I know that I have to move the other way. Okay, now we have this little box configuration. Okay, let's work backwards for a second. From here, obviously we jump from this square. Impossible to jump from this square because of gravity. So from here, here, how do we actually get to that square? Oh, okay. We get to this square through this jump. So this square to this square and then back here. So obviously at some point we're dropped in here and then we fall down, which means at some point we go through this little configuration, which looks like the knight lands here and drops down, which means he comes from here. Okay, so that we just need to get to this square. So we just drop here and then we do all of that. Sweet. Okay, and then we set this square to this square and then jump all the way up. Cool. All right, that wasn't actually that bad. It looked worse than it actually was at first glance. Okay, we've got a knight. So this knight can jump through walls. Cool, it can, but it can't actually make any progress after that. The king can climb up, but can't clear this gap. And we just have a pawn. So, am I missing something? Maybe the knight comes down, comes over, king goes up. The problem is, how does the knight come back up? Like, it'd be impossible for the knight to rejoin us here. And for either of these 2 pieces, even in conjunction, to work together to clear this gap. Oh, wait. Okay, yeah. As soon as I realized how far forward the pawn was, I realized it was a promotion tactic. Okay, so maybe I should think this through a little bit more, but I'm just going to go straight away with the queen. If I can use a queen, I will. So I'm going to use the king as the stepping stool, actually. Let the queen come in through the diagonal, slide over, allow the knight to come up, and capture the king. All right, easy peasy. Okay, level 13, unlucky 13. Again, is like one of those maze patterns. It's kind of funny. I'll do this just to demonstrate, but if we jump here, boom, we're already out of squares. So we've got to restart that. So we just have to make sure we don't run out of squares. Again, both of these are like poison squares. We'll move backwards instead. Again, if I move here, it's not that I run out of squares, but I can only move backwards. So we're going here. Straight up, same thing. I land in a corner, I can only move backwards, so it must be this way. Okay, now these are 2 interesting options. Well, not even. If I jump down here, both of these squares are cut off, so it must be this way. Okay, I don't love that I'm able to just kind of, you know, game it a little bit. I mean, I understand that this isn't meant to be super duper deep thinking, like, and I'm not going to say that all chess games are. You should see some of my bullet games. But this feels like you can kind of reason it just based on game design as opposed to actually having to calculate it all that much. But to be fair, we're on level 14. I believe there are 48 levels in total. So we've just begun this, basically. Okay, we've got a king, a bishop, and a rook. Obviously, king by himself could never make that jump. That's impossible. The bishop, this is a file, can never do that. So I'm going to assume the rook needs to come down and capture the king. Rook by himself has no way of getting out of this little square. King can't clear this jump, so I'm assuming the bishop is the one that has to come through and basically save the rook. Okay, can't drop the bishop here because then he gets stuck. So let's do this, get the king out of the way, and then bring the bishop through. Oh yeah, bring the bishop through, land on this platform. Now it's a light squared bishop, now can climb up. Let's get the rook out of the way, set it up so he can land on the bishop's head, and then make his way over. Okay, cool. This is good. Now, we need the same thing, because if we drop the rook now, he's stuck here forever, so we need to bring the bishop over again. Let's do this. Bring the bishop down, use the rook, and now I think the rook can just come all the way down. We need the rook to land on this square. So, drop him on the king's head, slide him over. Oops. King comes up, and the rook can capture the king. Nice. Pretty straightforward. That was level 14. Now on to, what is this? What's going on here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces to work with. The 7th I'm going to assume is delivering the final blow, just because of how oddly placed it is. So, I guess they want us to build like a bridge somehow where the rook... Actually, no, that doesn't make sense. Well, maybe that's what they want. We could build a bridge and then the king can come over and then just climb the bridge all the way to the top. No, but wait, it's probably easier than that. Actually, we can just stack Let's see, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so a diagonal bridge of 6 would just collapse. I mean, there's nothing to hold it up. So it's probably a stack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, how convenient. The rook would be able to land right onto this square, capture the king. Okay, so this is definitely building a tower of some kind. I'm going to assume the bishops we keep for last because they're able to climb really, really high. They have this really long range, whereas pieces like the king, the rooks, and the knights just simply don't. So let's start with the rook, who has no way of making any vertical progress, so he's going to be the last one on our list. Let's continue with a knight. Yep, we'll drop it just like that. Actually, wait, no, we should have continued with the king, who has the second least amount of range vertically, whereas the knight can actually jump 3. Okay, cool. Now we need one more knight. Obviously, the knight can't clear this jump all by himself, so he's going to need to step on a bishop's head and then jump up. Sweet. Now, this is trivial, just add the 2 bishops on the top. Cool. We've now got our majestic tower of pieces. We will drop the rook on the very pinnacle of it and capture the king. Okay. That was level 15 onto level 16. All right, this looks a lot more invested, or rather a lot more involved. Okay, I'm going to assume that because we have these platforms, we can just kind of walk the pawns forward, because I'm going to assume that's where they want them. We have these blocks, which are very conveniently placed for a knight to climb up to the top. And obviously the knight can't clear this jump without falling back down, so I'm going to assume the rook comes into play and helps the knight cross over. Nice. And now, oh wait, okay, so I'm looking at this now, and if the knight jumps onto the pawn, there's no way for him to clear the gap without just falling back to the bottom. And obviously pawns don't move backwards. Man, my kids would be laughing at me right now. This is literally what I used to tell my kids at chess camp. Don't move your pawns forward too aggressively because they can never move back. Make sure you have a plan for them. And look at me, eating my own words. Okay, so I don't think this is solvable because there's no way for the rook to make vertical progress. The pawns are stuck as is, and I'm starting to realize this pawn was probably supposed to only make it this far, and that would actually explain this platform, right? The rook would come up, use this pawn, now you actually have a purpose, sorry. We move up to this platform, also which now has a purpose, and then we move this way over the pawn, instead of actually stuffing basically the knight's ability to move. So okay, we'll restart that level. We will commit the pawns, but only thus far. Nice. We'll bring the rook over since we know that's where it needs to be. Let's do the same little maneuver with the knight. Up you go. Rook will serve as a stepping stool again. Cross over, cross over. Nice, we can jump onto here, jump into this little gap, and move over. Cool. Now we just need to be on one of these. Wait a minute. We need to be on one of these 3 squares if we're going to capture the king with the knight, which is impossible. All we can do is dance around the... Oh. Okay, fine. I was gonna say all we can do is dance around the king. I guess that makes sense. We've done that in previous runs, but it feels like before they've all been captures, whereas that one was literally dropping a knight that doesn't move like that on his head. But I guess, hey, looks like every piece can capture vertically downwards in this game, so we'll keep that in mind. Okay, we've got queen, knight. Obviously, the last move is going to be the knight jumping from this square to take the king, which will require the queen moving from this square onto the diagonal to serve as a stepping stool. Work one backwards from that one. How does the knight get here? Probably from here, jumping down onto the queen's head, which looks awfully painful. One step back from there, the knight would need to be here, the queen on the square, which means the knight came from this square, which means it came from this square, jumped from the queen's head from here, jumped from here, jumped from the queen's head? No, jumped from here regularly. Okay, cool. So we will, I guess, move the knight out of the way, drop the queen on this square, allow the knight to step on its head, climb upwards. We'll take a moment to shuffle the queen over, land on the knight's head, drop her on this square. We can do these couple of jumps. Again, the queen needs to be here so the knight can step on her to continue onto the next platform. So we'll drop her down. Nice, easy. Drop her down once more, slide her over, step on her head. Ooh, that's gonna leave a mark. And then take the king, okay. I like those kinds of levels where they kind of all coordinate. That was pretty interesting. Okay, level 18. Obviously, the bishop is not going to meander its way through this rank and file, so that's almost certainly just a stepping stool. The rook is up here, so we should probably move it out of the way so we can promote the pawn to something more powerful like the queen. Problem is, I'm imagining the queen here only being able to move vertically, so that's not of great help. We're gonna need at least 2 pieces. Like if I had, for example, the rook, obviously it could never be the bishop. If I had the rook on this square and I also had a queen Queen could jump on the rook's head, jump up here, I guess, fall down here, conveniently placed platform, and then jump on the king's head. Okay, cool. Minor issue. If I move the rook over, he ends up in this ditch, which is impossible to get out of. Same thing for, I guess, this tiny little square. So I need a way to keep him elevated. Obviously, the pawn won't work. It leaves him too high up. Oh, okay, let's use the bishop. Okay, cool. We bring the bishop here, seems fine. We can always get the bishop back out later. Drop the rook on the bishop, move the pawn to promote it. Thank you very much. And now, oh, wait a minute. If I drop the rook now right away, he's way too far down to ever make it to the 3rd rank. So we'll actually bring the bishop and the queen. No, that's not what I meant to do. I was going to say we'll bring the bishop and the queen over just to demonstrate what our plan is, kind of like this. And then if this rook hadn't gotten stuck, we would have been able to move it and then slide it over. So, okay, that's the plan. Let's do that again. We'll bring the bishop up, drop the rook on his head, promote the pawn. Thank you very much. Move the rook over first, and now we can continue with our previous maneuver. Nice. Drop the rook on the bishop, slide it over, bring the queen into battle. And then this is what we calculated earlier, which is here, platform, king's head. Nice. All right. That was level 18. Ooh, level 19, which has a key functionality apparently. Okay, so obviously the first step is collect this key or else we won't be able to unlock this box. Question is, how do we get up there? I'm going to assume it involves bringing the rook over because we have these platforms which only the rook can use. Obviously if we drop the rook now, ditch for forever, impossible to escape from. So bring the bishop down, bring the rook over. We'll drop him off here. Actually, I assume the rook wants to come down here anyway. So we'll drop him down here, bring the bishop back up. And now, oh, wait a minute, this bishop can't come into play like this, because if I drop him down here, he gets stuck and stares at these dead-end diagonals, and there's no way for him, actually, I guess he could jump up here, but then there's no way for him to make any progress to actually exit. The only way to exit is through this square, so actually, overcommitted the rook a little bit. We'll bring the rook back over, allow the bishop to escape, and now we can bring the rook into play. Okay, what am I actually looking for here? If I bring the rook over, drop the bishop down, it just stares at it, so that does nothing. Oh, okay, we're gonna drop the bishop onto this light square, onto the rook's head. Okay, and just, okay, that functionality always gets me a little bit. I've now noticed where dropping the piece onto whatever objective, like the king or the key, it kind of trips me up a little bit. Okay, now we just bring the rook up, get the bishop out of the way. You are done, useless to me. Slide him over and then take the king. Okay, too cruel to the bishop for no reason, but we did clear level 19. Okay, this is now level 20. Episode's getting a little bit long, so I'm probably gonna do this as my last level. And okay, obviously we need to collect the key to promote the pawn. Rook is going to have to do that because there's no other piece that can traverse through here, at least until the pawn promotes. So it's gonna have to be the rook that does it, which means, oh, look at that, we have 2 bishops. What if we stacked 2 bishops and then took the key? That would be amazing. Okay, problem is going to be getting these bishops out because obviously they're stuck right now. So we'll bring the rook in because he can always get back out through these platforms. Utilize the rook to free the bishops. Oh, okay. I didn't actually calculate that, but thank goodness they've placed these extra platforms for us to escape after. We make our way out. Whoops. Nope. Use the bishop. Nice. And again, thank goodness for these platforms. Now these bishops just need to make their way over. Nice and nice. They are going to be a little tower. Rook comes over, collects the key. Pawn can now promote. Hold on a second. Okay, so I'm looking at the way these platforms are spaced apart, and it looks pretty clear that that's going to need to be a knight, which I'm a little reluctant to do. I'm not really sure how a knight gets over there. Oh wait, never mind, I see it. Okay, so we're gonna bring the rook back. We now have a triple tower. Drop the knight down, climbs up, captures the king. Okay, cool. I like this game. I like that there's no reading involved. All right, with that, we do clear level 20. If you guys want to see me attempt this, I don't know if I want to attempt it, but if you guys want to see me attempt this ridiculous key level, let me know down below. If you guys did enjoy Chessformer, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next one.